I'm just saying in past history.
Okay, okay.
We'll
Let's
give
watch
you
the time for all the witnesses.
And if you want to cut him off and censor him some more, you're welcome to do it.
Oh, that's not my job. That's your job. Why don't you threaten a witness so that they can not want to be a witness? Mr. Chairman, I'm not exaggerating when I say that you have called before you 2 witnesses who pose a direct threat to people who oppose them. Why don't you threaten a witness so that they can not want to be a witness?
Why don't you threaten a witness so that they can not want to be a witness?
I'm just saying.
This is what we're going to do before we even get started. Mic check 1, 2. Chat, would you let me know that you can hear me? Let me see. Wait for the chat to get up to speed or to refresh. Let's go to Rumble. Make sure we're live on Rumble. We are. Let me see. I hope Viva spares us Trudeau. Yes. We can hear you. Holla freaking lulu. By the way, who was it in our locals community yesterday that said, have you tried turning it off and restarting it? You know what the problem was yesterday with Sargon of Akkad? Sorry, why? That's reflexive. With Lotus Eaters, Carl Benjamin. You know what the problem was? My freaking mic wasn't plugged in. Not into the computer. It had become unplugged. Where does it plug in? At the cloud lifter thing in the back. Oh my goodness. This is what happens when you move an office around too many times and you're like, yeah, I'm clamping the mic to some, I don't want to say antique desk. It's not, but anyhow, it's what happens. And the mic thing was working when I started, and then it must have slipped out, and then panic ensues, and then you make all the wrong decisions when you're in panic. All right, good morning, everybody. It's an early show. I'm going to be on the road today, so no choice, but also it worked out well. 2 specific guests, and this is turning into like the morning show. One day, sooner than later, we're going to have like call-in capabilities, from what I understand. But, sorry, I just got distracted by this comment. Viva, I sat through that choppy thing because you forgot to plug in the mic. No, the choppiness had nothing to do with the mic. I've got coffee this morning. Oh, I'm not going to pull a Scott Adams, but I don't know, I've done a 9 o'clock show. I haven't done one in a long time. Okay, I'm going to be on the road for the better part of the day, but it worked out well. Dr. Shiva is going to come on. Shiva, he's been on before. And we had an amazing, it was either a sidebar or just a straight up interview where he went into his life and he answered a question. Remember, he invented email, not the internet. He has in his bio, inventor of email. He's got the patent, whatever the certification is. And in the interview, I said, what difference does it make? You know, like if someone wants to deny you that, why fight for it? And he says, because I did it and I deserve the recognition for it. Not a question of selfishness, a question of encouragement and recognition. And that answer stuck with me. If you haven't seen that original stream, go back and watch it. Dr. Shiva is going to come on at, he's going to be a few minutes late, 9:05. And we're going to talk about his lawsuit. It's sort of a preemptive declaratory judgment. Oh, actually, speaking of which, I better bring it up. Because he's running for president. He is not a he's a naturalized citizen. He's not a natural born or native born. I forget what the exact term is, but we're going to go over it. Not born in America. The question is, can he run for president? The intuitive answer is no, he cannot. That's the rule. You have to be born in America, not necessarily to citizen parents. That's one argument, anchor babies becoming presidents. But we're going to talk, he's suing. Preemptive lawsuit, declaratory judgment. It's going to be interesting. 10 o'clock, Jason Lavigne. I'll share his Twitter feed a little later on. Is going to come on. And he's going to talk to us about the Coutts 4. I've talked about it a few times now, making a bit more of a stink about it now that Sheila Annette Lewis has resolved her organ donor dispute with the province of Alberta. Let's pick another injustice to really shine that beautiful spotlight on, to quote Robert Gouveia. So 10 o'clock, Jason Levine's on. Then I hit the road, and, you know, locals exclusive stuff is going to be happening after that. What we might actually just do, even before we get started, is I'm going to just bring this all over to YouTube in a few minutes, but not before I shine that big, beautiful spotlight on YouTube chicanery. Back in the day, look, this has been my progression of a red pill. Back in the day, I was timid, I was polite, I was reluctant to share my opinion because what's the point of making enemies in life? You know, life is short. Then I realized you're going to make enemies even if you stay quiet, because silence is violence. And if you don't, punch a Yahtzee, then you are a Yahtzee. But in my YouTube career, if we can call it that, which has culminated in my exclusivity with Rumble because of the YouTube chicanery. But for those of you who have been following me for 5 years, I shouldn't say following, but have been subscribers for 5 years, you've seen it. Once upon a time, 2018, I did a breakdown of the Alex Jones deposition in I believe it was the Connecticut Sandy Hook defamation case. I'm on my roof wearing sunglasses, making, cringe analysis like nobody's business from a delivery perspective, from a content perspective. It was sufficiently on point that it actually got Robert Barnes's attention, and then that's how we actually ended up meeting. I did a video deposition analysis of Alex Jones, and YouTube removed it for violating its terms of service for hate speech. I had been getting wise to YouTube's arbitrariness, and I actually made an entire playlist called YouTube Chicanery, because no rhyme or reason. Talk about ASAP Rocky, demonetized. Analyze a legal deposition, hate speech, removed from YouTube. I appealed it. The appeal was rejected. And then out of the blue, a couple weeks later, the video reappears on YouTube, and not only reappears, but gets remonetized. Well, I've had yet another run-in with chicanery. And I'm telling you, I'm going to explore a legal theory, not necessarily in the court of law. I'm going to put it out there in the court of public opinion. And anybody who has the necessity of filing suit, filing complaints, although I might have the necessity or the intention of filing a complaint, I'll throw the legal theories out there. You know, lawsuits to sue YouTube as a government actor have failed thus far, although there's a promising precedent coming out of Missouri versus Biden. You know, once it becomes clear that these social media companies are actually acting at the behest of government officials or government entities, it becomes a little easier to make the argument that these social media companies are an extension of government, undeclared, undisclosed, carrying out the censorship whims of the government. We know this now. Twitter files, we know it definitively. Back channels, we know it. Meetings, we know it. CIA, FBI meeting with Zuckerberg. Get ready for some disinformation. We know it happens. That said, as of now, you know, the government entity has failed as an argument. Section 230 claims have failed as a lot of claims have been rejected on the Section 230. I've always had a theory, deceptive business practices. I can't complain about consumer rights, because if I use YouTube as a business, I can't purport to be, a lowly consumer. I can, however, raise the flag about deceptive business practices, as I've floated a little while in the past. Deceptive business practices or unjust enrichment. But all that to say, real quick, I had a video that has been on YouTube for over 2 months, give or take 2 months. Let's see if I'm going to get the right thing here. My interview with Francois Amalaga, a Cameroonian, lives in Quebec, protested COVID lockdowns, protested COVID mandates, went to jail. It was a marathon of an interview. Been on YouTube since the day of the interview. As far as I know, it was monetized as well. Out of the blue, 2 months later, I get an email saying, "We've removed your content." Interview with Francois Amalaga, jailed, fined nearly $100,000 for COVID stuff. What did it say? Because it's a first, by the way, 4,000 videos, 1,500 live streams. First, after the wrong one with Alex Jones, they took it down. 2 months later, after it's been on the platform, monetized, they've made their money off of it. Oh, what was the violation? Medical misinformation policy. And I appealed it. Comes back, no. Oh, sorry, we've reviewed it. They didn't even have barely enough time to rewatch the entire interview before the appeal was rejected. And then I DM them, take it to Twitter. They DM me, say, nothing we can do. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do. Nothing more. Unfortunately, there's nothing more we can do on our end. Your video removal and appeal are very carefully reviewed based on the policy violations we shared in our last tweet. We really appreciate your understanding. Bull crap, YouTube. You've carefully reviewed it. You can tell me the timestamp where there's violative content. You can tell me the rule that I violated, not your 3 pages of rubbish. You've made money off of it. You've garnered traffic off of it. And then 2 months later, once you've used and abused of the content, you unilaterally, I don't know, was there a mass flagging campaign? I know Francois Amalaga has made a lot of enemies in Canada. I know his content does get flagged. I know people show up at his house, slash his tires, assault him. We talked about that during the interview. Bullcrap, YouTube. There's more you can do. In fact, there's more that you know you can do that you're not doing because you like it like this. And if someone doesn't call it out as a deceptive business practice, it'll never get called out. Maybe someone's going to sue them, have a novel lawsuit against YouTube for deceptive business practices. Or I tagged Florida Attorney General Ashley Moody. Just a complaint. Hey, I'm not a consumer. I'm a merchant. I'm doing business. This is a deceptive business practice. You make money, you get traffic, you build your platform, and then in the dead of night, you strike the channel that you just built for traffic, money, and attention. Now, speaking of novel lawsuits, I see our guest is in the backdrop. Dr. Shiva? Dr. Shiva, it's going to be, well, you all know him, but we're going to do the 30,000-foot overview just in case some of you have missed the first interview. I'm going to bring in Dr. Shiva right now. 3, 2, 1. Sir, can you hear me?
Yes, Viva, how are you? Good to have you.
I'm very good. I'm very good. So I'm having it's not a problem that I'm having with YouTube, and I honestly don't care about it, but I have the luxury of making a big stink about it, and I'm going to make a big stink about it and float novel ideas. But speaking of novel ideas and novel lawsuits, Dr. Shiva, you're entertaining one right now. We're going to talk about it today, but for those who we'll do the brief intro here, then we're going to bring this over to Rumble exclusively. For those who don't know who you are and might have missed our first interview, let the world know who you are.
Well, my name is Dr. Shiva Ayyaduria. Globally, I'm known as the founder and the leader of what's known as the Truth, Freedom, Health movement. And it's a movement about 400 million people know. We have and we put about 500,000 people through training in this movement. And the movement is really dedicated, Viva, as we've talked about before, to systems thinking. My view is that the only way out of the left, right, or what I also call the obvious and not so obvious establishment front end that those in power put forward is to teach people how to think from a systems perspective. We live in a world of systems right now. The elites, around 10 to 20,000 people, actually know how to think from a systems perspective. And there was a video I did a couple of weeks ago. I think it got like 20 million views. It went viral on its own, called The Swarm. And I'll send you a link to it, Viva. People will like it. But it's a video that really explains. People try to say, who is the establishment, right? And they try to point one finger. Oh, it's this group or that group. But when you take a systems perspective, which really emerged out of the 1900s, anyone can learn it, and you really start identifying in a much more broader level what's actually going on in the world right now. So that's one of the things I do, Viva. But that understanding and sort of the current thing that I do comes out of my work as an MIT PhD, as the guy who invented email when I was 14 years old, someone who's taught all over the world. But fundamentally, I'm a scientist and an inventor, and I'm running for president for the United States as an independent candidate, because I believe that's what's occurred is that we have this left-right narrative, and more importantly, the much more devious, obvious, and not so obvious establishment. In the United States, the not so obvious establishment is led by a guy I call him Booby Kennedy, and Trump, okay? And we'll talk more about that. But at a fundamental level, I'm a guy who actually does engineering and science, makes things. I'm not a lawyer, okay? But I've done law. I probably have more legal experience representing myself in federal court than 90% of the US trained lawyers, particularly in the federal lawsuit in 2020, where it was my lawsuit that got the first injunction, federal lawsuit, where I went up against 7 lawyers in federal court to expose that the government has an unholy alliance with big tech. And in fact, the first line of that lawsuit was called the weaponization of government. And it's quite interesting that the subcommittee on the weaponization of government does not have the wherewithal to invite me, but they invite for theater and show freaking Kennedy, who supports the censorship infrastructure, including supporting Musk. And you have a very, very interesting world right now, Viva, and we should talk about it, because you have the Republicans supporting Twitter, and you have the Democrats supporting Facebook, and they're once again going to shove under the rug the fundamental issues of the government and big tech's unholy alliance. So being in the center of that, the guy who discovered that, and being left out of that discussion will point everyone to the fact what's actually going on. So when you look at my arc, it's gone from India, where I was born in India, came to the United States in 1970, was very motivated to understand systems, medical systems, how systems of power work. You won't find a lot of Indians like me in the United States. We're considered low caste untouchables. It's very interesting for me to see in the last 2 years, they found a bunch of brown figures like this guy Vivek, who's a big pharma shill, a Brahmin, by the way. But meanwhile, all the work I do gets made invisible. But it's quite extraordinary to actually watch this from my perspective. And but in 2020, people know I brought all of that together. I was the first guy who exposed Fauci, did the Fire Fauci campaign while Robert Booby effing Kennedy was supporting lockdowns. And I think everyone should stop getting on the Booby fucking bandwagon because he's part of the problem. You know, he's every recurrent year, every 10 to 20 years, the establishment says, shit, the masses are rising up. Let's figure out some fake leader to put in front of them. In 1984, it was Jesse Jackson. And then you had Bernie Sanders. And then you had Trump. And now they're promoting Trump from the left and the right and Booby from the right, from the left, to essentially manipulate people to have faith in the establishment. When you look at the history of these individuals, both of them supported lockdowns in 2020. In fact, severe lockdowns, and supported, Kennedy particularly said, we need lockdowns. It's going to save people from the COVID spread, and it's going to save the environment for climate change. But he has like not only 2 tongues, he got 5 tongues. And it's really unfortunate to see smart people who claim they're against the establishment get on the Kennedy bandwagon or the Trump bandwagon. It's disgraceful, I think. And fortunately, because we're an independent movement, we don't owe our views or our monetization to any of these guys. So you have the right now sucking up to Kennedy, and they get all the views. And if you look at what's happened to my views on Twitter, I used to get 30,000 retweets in the old Twitter. When I got back on December, after 2 years of being thrown off, which was the basis of that lawsuit, I did a tweet. I don't know if you saw this. It said, hey, Elon, why don't you make me the CEO of Twitter?
Yep,
I'm the real fighter. That got like 20 million views, 500,000 views per day. And then shortly thereafter, I started hitting Musk. I said, are you going to remove the backdoor portal to Twitter? And my views went from 500,000 to 300,000. You can literally draw a curve, how many tweets I did and the impressions per day. And now it's down to around 5,000 per day, all right, on average. All the conservatives, including James Woods, what's the name, Dinesh D'Souza, you know, they're all supporting Musk. Oh, he's great. Everyone's bowing down to him, Mike Adams. But the reality is Musk is doing censorship 10.0, which is really keeping people in digital cages. You let him on, free speech doesn't equal free reach. If you say shit against him and you're not part of the club, you get unpromoted. We have all the data, and we'll be doing a follow-up lawsuit on that, because a lawsuit that we won in Massachusetts when the judge tried to buy me out, that's going to be extended to going against the government. And by the way, in those lawsuits, I represented myself. In fact, my lawsuits were so good, Viva, the head of Wilmer and Hale, which is the #1 law firm in the world, in the United States, definitely, she said my lawsuits were done by somebody else. So that was the strength of, to me, lawsuits are almost like software. They're very beautiful, actually, if you use the case law right and you weave it together properly. So anyway, so it's been a very fun lifetime. But the most important thing I am very passionate about is integrating science, engineering, politics. And that's what Truth, Freedom, and Health is. We teach people every day how to think from a systems perspective. And anyone can learn this. And we do that at truthfreedomhealth.com. And our campaign, fundamentally, the reason I'm running for president is because typically you have the obvious establishment on the left or the right, and then you have the not so obvious establishment. And we're at a very critical time in American history because the elites are recognizing, or I call them the swarm, as recognizing that people are waking up, but that's why they've created the not so obvious establishment, and they push and they give them a lot of publicity, negative or positive. They get to be on the theater front, Kennedy and Trump. So right now, there's a pageant show going on. Will it be DeSantis or, you know, the obvious establishment or the not so obvious establishment? The establishment doesn't care as long as you suck up to one of these people and you get drawn back into the top-down politics versus building a bottoms-up movement. And Kennedy literally steals our stuff, literally word for word. He's a total scumbag.
Now I'm gonna
That's
bring
a
up
technical term, and I'll define it why I say that.
Well, we're going to bring this over to Rumble now, but I'm going to bring up a few nasty comments, or I should say critique comments, because first of all, it's like once you attack Trump and and RFK Jr. and DeSantis, it has gotten very tribalistic, partisan, even within within the two factions. And so once an independent like yourself comes up and challenges one of them, you'll get accused of vote splitting. You'll get accused of being controlled opposition, so that you're trying to sow discord among what have to be allied forces. So I'm going to bring up a few things just so that people don't think I'm here. I don't even care what people think. Just to ask you the questions that I know people are thinking, because when someone hears someone confidently come out almost arrogantly and say, these people who you are worshiping are in fact not worthy of worship, and people have for the last 5 years sunk themselves into that line of thinking, it's going to be upsetting for them. And whether or not you're right, I think I read your lawsuits. I remember you being the first one, and I remember what people said about you at the time. When you got the when you were the first one to reveal what was effectively the back door, and at the time,
not only the back door, Viva, we revealed the entire censorship infrastructure. I don't have the diagram here, and the judge wanted to seal that lawsuit, and he was going to do a Rule 11 on me. He gave me the first victory, and he said this lawsuit will be taught in every constitutional law class. We sent all the findings to Tucker Carlson in October of 2020. That bastard intentionally concealed it because he's part of the intelligence network. And that's why I call him Fucker Carlson. And then he is. And we should talk about this.
Well, here, I'm going to bring this one up. Sounds a bit resentful. And I imagine that you might be a bit resentful. That's not necessarily.
I think a comment like that comes from someone who's not using their full neuronal capacity. Okay. Because that's typically, oh, you sound resentful. Well, it's not resentful. It's actual hatred. Let me be it's anger, because these people are manipulating you. 2 days ago, we had an MD, very smart guy, Harvard trained MD out of California. He said, I saw the video with Joe Rogan and what's his name? Booby Kennedy. And he goes, I was so enthralled, I was going to give him money. And he goes, somewhere a video popped out of you exposing Kennedy and Rogan. And he goes, for 2 days, I had cognitive dissonance. That's what you're talking about, Viva. And he goes, I couldn't sleep, but everything you said was on the mark. And I didn't want to get fooled again. He came to our open house and he's become one of our leaders now overnight. When people are willing to let go of their cult-like slavement to thinking that a fucking Kennedy is going to save you, or fucking Trump was golden plated toilets, it means you don't respect yourself at a deep level. And you're looking to someone who came from families who were low caste Indians, okay, in working class communities. I owe nothing to these fucking people. And people better realize these people will never do anything. They have forked tongues. And Booby fucking Kennedy is a demon at a very deep level. And I will expose him. And my history, someone want to look at it, you can go to 17 years old. I'm on the streets fighting for everyday people. Okay?
Let me ask you this.
You can compare my history to Kennedy's history and Trump's.
There's going to be
side by side.
Two questions. Well, what was exposed? Now, is it the standard he was supporting certain policies at the time and is now no longer?
Which one, Trump or Kennedy? Where do you want
let's go with Kennedy. I mean, I think we know about the Trump.
Oh my God, are you on Rumble already? Is that right?
Well, hold up. No, but you know what? I'm going to put this on YouTube afterwards anyhow, but we're going to end this on YouTube now. Go over to Rumble. Everybody has the link. Right. It's in the pinned comment. I'm going to end it. How do I do this? And sorry, I was late to start on locals. By the way, I have also been told by not powerful people who are at Rumble. I should be reminding everybody, download the app and turn on notifications, and obviously subscribe to the channel if you want, because that's how you'll get notifications in real time. If you go and you download the app and do immediate notifications, that way you won't necessarily get notifications for a live stream the day after the stream. Ending on YouTube, go over to Rumble. We're on vivabarneslaw.locals.com as well, and we're ending on YouTube now, and this will come up in its entirety tomorrow.